The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that crawls under the skin and settles deep inside the bones, making even breathing feel heavy. Streetlights flickered along the empty park path, trembling as if they too were shivering. On one of the worn-out benches, its paint chipped, its metal frozen stiff, sat a man who looked as though life had taken more from him than it had ever given. His shoulders hunched, his fingers numb, his breath fogging the air like smoke. He wasn't waiting for anyone. He wasn't hoping for anything. He was simply enduring another night of a life that had forgotten him, and yet, without knowing it, he was only moments away from a meeting that would rewrite his destiny forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one moment to change a life, please like, comment, share, and subscribe before the story continues. It truly helps support these meaningful stories. He was known in the neighborhood as Harris, the quiet man with tired eyes and slow steps, someone who blended into the background like a shadow fading into dusk. Once, he had dreams like everyone else. He had worked in a small printing press, earning enough to survive, saving little by little for better days. But life, unpredictable and often cruel, had knocked him down harder than he knew how to rise. The printing shop closed without warning, leaving him jobless. His landlord, impatient and unforgiving, evicted him when he fell behind on rent. And the world, with its fast pace and cold priorities, moved on without noticing the man left behind. Now his home was wherever his feet took him. Some days it was an abandoned bus stop, other days the covered space behind a closed bakery. But recently, the park bench had become his refuge. Perhaps because the bench didn't judge. Perhaps because the trees whispered softly at night, making him feel less alone. Or perhaps because deep inside, the part of him that still remembered what hope felt like clung to this place, believing something might eventually change. On that particular night, hunger gnawed at him sharply. He hadn't eaten since the morning, when he found a half-eaten sandwich in a trash bin near the market. His fingers trembled as he hugged his jacket tighter, trying to trap whatever little warmth remained. His body was tired, but his heart even more so. He wondered if people passing by ever looked at him and wondered how he got here, or if he had become invisible, like a misplaced piece of the world. He told himself not to expect kindness. Life had proven too many times that kindness wasn't meant for people like him. As he sat silently, watching the faint glow of the city in the distance, he heard footsteps approaching. He didn't turn. People passed through the park often, walking pets or taking shortcuts home. Nobody ever stopped near him except to avoid his presence. But the footsteps grew slower, more deliberate, until they stopped right in front of him. Harris stiffened slightly, unsure whether he should look up or stay still. Before he could decide, a voice, calm, warm, unfamiliar, broke through the silence. But the story is not told through words. Instead, the moment unfolded through actions that spoke louder than any voice could. A man, well-dressed yet carrying an air of humility, stood holding a steaming cup in one hand and a paper bag in the other. He didn't approach with pity. He didn't stare with judgment. He simply extended what he had brought. Harris hesitated, feeling the weight of pride and shame collide inside him. But the smell of warm broth drifted through the cold air, and hunger pushed him to accept. His hands shook as he reached out, not from the cold alone, but from the shock of unexpected compassion. The stranger sat on the bench, not too close, not too far, just enough to share the moment. Harris ate slowly, savoring each bite, as if afraid the food would vanish if he blinked. The warmth seeped through him, melting the ice around his spirit. His eyes glistened, but he blinked away the tears, unwilling to look weak. The stranger didn't speak. He simply watched the night sky, offering quiet company. That silence felt safe, gentle, healing. Something Harris hadn't felt in years. When Harris finished the meal, the man finally rose. He slipped a small card beside Harris and walked away without waiting for gratitude. The simplicity of his gesture felt surreal. Harris looked at the card, expecting it to be something unimportant, but the name printed boldly made his breath hitch. Daniel Harrington, Harrington Global Industries. Harris had seen the name countless times in newspapers and advertisements, a millionaire known for his business empire, yet rumored to live a life rooted in humility. Harris turned the card over, expecting nothing, but found an address and a short line written in quick but thoughtful handwriting. "Come tomorrow morning. Let's talk." All night, Harris battled disbelief. Was this a prank? A trick? Why would someone like Daniel notice someone like him? The doubts circled endlessly, but beneath them something long buried began to stir. A faint glimmer of hope. Morning arrived with a softer sky. Harris washed his face in a nearby fountain, straightened his worn-out jacket, and walked toward the address. The building stood tall, polished, and intimidating, a world far from anything he had experienced. Security guards looked at him with uncertainty when he mentioned Daniel's name, but a quick call confirmed that he was expected. Inside, Daniel greeted him with the same calm warmth as the night before. The office was spacious but simple, filled with plants, soft art pieces, and sunlight streaming through wide windows. Harris felt small, but Daniel didn't let him sink into that feeling. Instead, he asked about Harris's life, not out of curiosity, but with a sincerity that made Harris open up in ways he hadn't done in years. Daniel listened, truly listened, and something inside Harris broke open. He spoke of his struggles, his losses, his battles with loneliness. And instead of sympathy, Daniel offered opportunity. He explained how he believed in giving people a chance to rebuild, not through handouts, but through dignity and trust. He told Harris about a community project he was starting, one aimed at employing those who had fallen through the cracks of society. He wanted Harris to be one of the first members. The offer was overwhelming. Harris felt tears slip down before he could stop them. It wasn't just a job, it was a lifeline, a chance to reclaim the pieces of his life scattered by hardship. Daniel didn't look away when he cried. He placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, grounding him back in hope. In the following weeks, Harris's life transformed. He worked diligently, rediscovering his sense of purpose. He was trained, guided, encouraged. Slowly, he became more than a man surviving day to day. He became someone rebuilding from the ruins. With each passing day, his eyes regained their light, his steps grew steadier, and his heart felt stronger. People in the community began to know him not as the man on the bench, but as the hard-working, dependable person he had always wanted to be. And Daniel remained present, not as a distant benefactor, but as a mentor and friend. Months later, on a crisp evening, Harris found himself walking past the same bench that once served as his shelter. He stopped, staring at the cold metal seat that had held his despair. This time, he wasn't alone. He carried warmth within him, the warmth Daniel ignited, the warmth of a second chance. He reached out and touched the bench lightly, not with sadness, but with gratitude. It reminded him that some endings are actually beginnings in disguise, that sometimes the coldest nights lead to the warmest dawns, and that one act of kindness, silent, simple, sincere, can lift someone from the deepest trenches. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. Before the ending, please take a moment to comment. Kindness can save lives. Harris eventually became a supervisor in the community project, helping others who once stood where he had. He often shared his journey, not to gain sympathy, but to remind people that no one's story is over just because they're struggling. Daniel's gift wasn't money, or power, or luxury, it was belief. A belief that lifted Harris from a cold bench and placed him back into the warmth of purpose, dignity, and hope. And in that transformation, a truth echoed through every life Harris touched afterward. Sometimes, the greatest gift one can give is the simple act of seeing someone who has been forgotten. The cold bench never changed, but the heart that once sat upon it found new warmth, because someone cared enough to stop, to offer kindness, and to believe that one life, no matter how broken, was worth saving.